Very good afternoon to all of you and welcome on the Sunset Safari, where we will be journeying through the Masai Mara of Kenya and then later joined by our team in South Africa. Although, looking over there, all of this may very much be somewhat weather dependent. I see rain, Jahawi. Do you think it's going to blow south? Let's say it's going to blow south. A quick introduction as to who I with me, and we are struggling with gremlins, fighting the gremlins off moment by moment. Never fear, we will succeed. So this is all entirely 100% live from the Masai Mara in Kenya, and because it's live, that means that you could ask questions on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Let us go, because I suspect that I wouldn't have thought we were in a dodgy signal area, but let's just go a little bit further forward as we adventure out on our plan for the day. So it's quite a muggy afternoon, which I think would be explained by the building of the thunderstorms around us. Yesterday we were with the Musketeer Male Lion Coalition, and I was quite convinced that we were going to escape that we weren't going to escape, that we were going to get absolutely soaked. And for some reason the storm just brushed us gently and then went off on its way, whereas Jahawi and Brent were caught in the downpour, were you not? Pretty much. So it's amazing how localized these storms actually are out here. Eric, I don't think I've been here long enough to tell you what my favorite season is in the Masai Mara. I can tell you that I'm really enjoying this time of year. So I only arrived here in May. No, that's not true, in June. I've lost track of time. And I've been here ever since, but I have to say, this time of year, lots of lots of little babies around. Grass is green, grass is quite short, so we can actually see the baby animals. I think this has been my favorite time of the year so far. Jahawi, of course, has lived and worked in the Mara before. Jahawi, what's your favorite time of year? Tricky. It's what those little piggies aren't going to let me get much closer, so let me stop here quickly before they disappear. Oh, too sweet. See? How is it not possible to love this time of year when the little baby animals are all wandering about? This morning we had a spectacular elephant sighting with 2 youngsters. The zebra have babies, the antelope have babies. And it's just very pretty. Sorry, Jahawi, I interrupted you.
It's quite seasonal. I mean, the rains come through quite a bit, and so it goes up and down. But this time's nice.
There we go. So Jahawi is agreeing that this time is nice, but it is, as we were talking about, very seasonal. So we're still in, as far as I understand, we're still technically in the first of the rainy seasons, or the second, depending on which way around you look at it, given that it's cyclical. But the short rains happen now between November and, well, during November. And then we go into a dry season, and apparently it does get very dry. And then, after that, it will go back into the long rainy season. Tony, good question, because it's actually a very hot afternoon, and I'm going to stop at the giraffe. I just want to get a bit closer and so we can have a look at the baby giraffe as well. The rain is cold, in my experience, but bear in mind, Tony, and I have been criticized for this before. I'm South African and I'm from the Lowveld. What I consider to be cold and what I consider to be cold water doesn't necessarily match up to what other people perceive to be as cold. I've been freezing in the rainstorms out here, but that might just be because I've often found myself absolutely drenched in the rainstorms out here. But the wind usually howls. At one point, the wind blew the rain into us so hard that it was actually stinging. It was actually painful. But we're lucky, of course, most of the time, we can shelter, whereas animals like this baby giraffe just have to learn that being exposed to the elements is, well, what life has in store for it. At least you escaped the leopard, little one. That, of course, is because the first giraffe kill I saw in the Mara was a leopard kill. Mia, okay, let's start with something easy, Mia, because Mia's wondering about the sex of the giraffe. So let's have a look at the large giraffe. Mia, you're wondering about how you can tell the sex of a giraffe. Okay, so this is a female, and the way that you can tell, the quickest way you can tell, is to have a look at the bulges on the top of her head. Now, those are called ossicones, not horns, ossicones. And you'll see that they're quite thin and quite tufted. As well as the bone around between her eyes, you'll notice that you can see it. There's a ridge there, but it's not particularly prominent. Now that's what tells us it's a female, because the ossicones of a male are much, much thicker and usually rubbed bald by the constant rubbing, either when they're sparring with each other or when they are actually seriously fighting. And they fight by swinging their heads around. It's known as necking. And they fight by swinging their heads around, those long, powerful necks, and they hit each other on the sides or on the legs. But it's only the males that do that. And therefore, it makes sense for them to have more solid ossicones. The other way is the way that you would expect, which is to check between their legs, but as you can see, it's not always that easy, and perhaps you want to make that judgment call as quickly as possible. Be careful with young males, because young males tend to have quite well-developed ossicones, and even though they are tufted, because they haven't been rubbed smooth yet and because they actually haven't lost the hair around the ring, doesn't mean that they are not... They're still male, they just look a lot thicker than that of a female. And I think that one is a male at the back. It's a bit far away. It's a pity because they were so beautifully close when I drove past earlier this morning. Oh, yeah, there's a male. Yes, Scarlett, absolutely. There, you see how the ossicones are larger and rubbed bald? Sorry, I should have finished that train of thought. But Scarlett, yes, absolutely. Even a female giraffe or a young giraffe could potentially kill a lion. Giraffe kick powerfully, and in fact I know quite a few people who have seen lions killed by giraffe, or at the very least knocked out. So their kick is exceptionally powerful. It also goes forwards as well as backwards. So they can kick with their front legs, they can kick obviously with their back legs, and I've even seen a giraffe kick quite effectively sideways. So a hoof the size of a side plate, or at least lengthwise, combined with a very large amount of muscle behind it, and levered on the end of a very long leg, and you get a kick that is very powerful indeed. So it has happened in the past that lions have been killed by giraffe. Leopards as well. I know a story of a leopard being knocked out by a giraffe. I've never seen it though. Holden, if I'm not mistaken, the record-breaking giraffe in terms of height was over 6 meters tall, so over 18 feet. That's particularly tall. Between 4.5 and 5 meters would be the giraffe that we see around here. They're not going to get that much taller than that unless you've got an exceptional circumstance. But around about 18 or so feet was the record-breaking giraffe, or just over that. Just over that. I think it was 20 feet, which is absolutely massive. Hello, little one. Look at this thing. Giraffe defense mechanism is to stand and stare and figure out exactly what's going on. So just to let you know, I will be on my own for the foreseeable future. Brent apparently is having some difficulty with his communication. Marvellous. Thank you, Alice. So you had me for half an hour solo this morning. You get me for half an hour, potentially longer, solo this afternoon. Very pale little one. Almost white underneath the spots. Now, Marion, you want to know why some giraffe have a knob on their forehead and others don't. All giraffe have it's part of the bones of their forehead, and all giraffe have them. But they become more developed and more ossified as the giraffe ages. And what you'll see with male giraffe is that bulge becomes far more prominent. So we can barely see it on this youngster. Now, as it ages, depending on whether it's a female or a male, and it's a bit tricky to tell at this age without having a proper look at the more obvious physiological differences, because the ossicones haven't developed properly yet. But as it grows older, if it's a male, that bulge, and it's actually, as far as I remember, it's also technically termed an ossicone, that bulge becomes even more well developed as the male grows older. And once they reach dominance, it can actually, particularly in the Maasai species of giraffe, almost look like a third horn or a third ossicone. So it's quite a peculiar thing, and for the males, it's extra weaponry. They've also got two bulges or two the protrusions of the bone behind the ossicones. What I wanted to do was find you a good example, but we need the big old male that I saw this morning. I wonder where he is. I'm sure he's around somewhere. That was one of them, off in the distance. But he's not the best example. The one I saw this morning had a pretty protruding. I don't want to keep calling it. It is, but I want to distinguish between the protrusion on the front of the head and the ossicones between the ears. So it's very useful potential weaponry for a male giraffe, and they occasionally, every now and again, will knock each other out using the sheer power of their heads. Okay, I'm going to carry on, or am I? I'm looking at that weather thinking, no, I think we'll be okay, you know. We might get a little bit of light drizzle, but it's definitely not going to be absolutely disastrous. I think I saw one of the bigger males down there, which is why I want to just move on past. Oh, let's have a quick stop here, just a quick look to continue the anatomy lesson on males and females. Just quickly. Now, within giraffe, that's a terrible way of phrasing that. Giraffe have external testicles, unlike rhino or elephant, which means that you can look in the normal way if you happen to have that view of the giraffe's back end. And at the same time, the penile sheath sits quite far forward on a male. So there's a little sort of, I guess you'd call it a bump on their bellies. It's quite far forward. Now this is a female, it lacks that, and you can actually see far more a set of developed nipples between her back legs. I'm not sure if you can see it in this light. There you go. You can. I'm just trying to shade my monitor so that I can see what you're seeing. Yeah, so there you go. So obviously that is used for feeding young calves. And that is the most reliable way that you can tell the difference. Next question from Scarlett, while we look at a female giraffe that is actually pretty much at sort of her maturity level. Scarlett, life expectancy of a giraffe in the wild, you're looking at over 20 years. Big males will reach the point of not sexual maturity, but at the point at which they are really in their prime and ready to breed and able to compete with other males after 10 years old. And we term those males stink bulls, or they're often termed stink bulls. And the reason for that, they first of all tend to go quite dark in color, not always, but they also secrete a very smelly substance from their skin, and that is known as, I can't remember what it's called. It's just gone straight out of my mind. But it creates the same scent as human feces. Hence the name stink bulls. You can smell it. Hey girls. But you love that smell, presumably. Tells you that there's a fine looking man. I guess, if you're a giraffe. I don't think she knows what to think of that. So typically what you'll find as well with life expectancies is that giraffe, or any animal in captivity, will live a bit longer than those in the wild, with the exception of giraffe, or with one of the exceptions being giraffe. Giraffe really struggle in captivity, and if I remember correctly, they're one of the animals that actually has a far longer life expectancy in the wild than they do when they're enclosed. So that's just something interesting to think about. Most animals in captivity will live longer because there's less threats, obviously. They're protected. They don't have to engage in territorial battles or battles for supremacy. They're well fed. There's a dietitian looking after their every need, ensuring they get all the vitamins and minerals. But giraffe in captivity, unless they are very, very well cared for experts, tend to not do as well. Hey girl. Okay. Let's carry on down. I think we're safe for now, but I'm not too sure. I'm sort of looking over there where the weather looks nice. Because it doesn't look so nice over there. Especially if I'm on my own. I'm sorry, I'm chuckling. I just had this bizarre image of a lot of very confused Australians. Monique's question is, what African animal would survive in an Australian climate? I guess it depends on which part of Australia. I mean, surely some places are much drier than others. Temperatures are not that much hot. In fact, they're not. They're actually even potentially a little bit cooler than the highest temperatures in the low veld. But there are areas that are very dry, but there are areas in South Africa that are very dry as well. Australian climate is not that different to a fair portion of South Africa. It's possibly why you've got so many South Africans there. Mind you, we can find South Africans everywhere. Most of them, I think, except in terms of the dry, we all know that there's certain animals that are very well adapted to dry environments. Something like a gemsbok or an oryx. But you've specifically said climate. We haven't necessarily talked about food or resources. And that, I think, might make things more difficult. Because how on earth would a black rhino, say, that does very well in a dry climate, how on earth would it be able to find what it is specially adapted to eat? Uh-oh, that doesn't feel so good. I can smell rain. Where's going to be best? I don't know that I'm going to escape it, but I'm going to go that way. And to go where the blue sky is. Sure, I just saw warthogs running through the grass. I'm sure I did. They must have gone down into their burrows. I don't know where they went. Okay, so Parlin's taken the idea of the African animals being transported to Australia and has said that seeing a cheetah hunting a kangaroo might be interesting. I can't disagree with that. I think it would be interesting to say the least. But now kangaroos are powerful. They are really, if I'm not mistaken, kangaroos in particular. I mean, I understand a cheetah could catch a wallaby pretty easily, but certain species of kangaroo are capable of badly injuring even big dogs. I've heard and seen about. So I'm not sure. A cheetah's quite... I've got this image of a kangaroo bouncing across the Mara. But a cheetah's quite... I think it would have to be the five boys, the five musketeers that would hunt a kangaroo, rather than a female cheetah who might actually find herself in difficulties. I also can't believe that in Australia there are times of the year where you have to, again, not all of Australia, but where you have to ride around with cable ties sticking out of bicycle helmets to stop the magpies taking your eyes out. I find that quite astounding. At least that's something we don't have to worry about. Although that actually, I did get attacked once as a child, but it was an invasive species. It was by a type of bird called Indian miners. And they attacked me when I was a kid because I pulled one of them out of the swimming pool. And the rest of the family decided I was attacking it. And for about a year afterwards, every time I left the house and went into the garden, they would shoot down from the roof and attack me. I'm trying to outrun the weather and I'm not sure I'm winning. And every time I turn my head to the right, the wind blows my voice away. Question for Australians: do you think a kangaroo would be more powerful than a female cheetah? That's the question I have to ask you. Sorry, Alice, what were you saying? Rebecca thinks they would. Oh, Mystic, yes, it would, absolutely. So, would planting some trees in the Mara change the ecological dynamic? Yes, probably. Bear in mind that a large portion of this area probably would have had more trees in the past, and it's been shaped by different conditions, including human beings. But I'm trying to think how best to answer this. But I think you would have a seriously hard time planting enough trees to make a difference to the ecological dynamic. Let's put it that way. There we go. While I put on a jacket or two. This wind is icy cold. And we can enjoy the company of some elephants. And Dina K, you will be thrilled to see elephants. Apparently you were holding out hope that we would see Ellies on today's drive. And I confess, I haven't had one drive in the Mara where I haven't seen elephants. And this morning was absolutely stunning. This morning's sighting was just one of those rare moments, and they don't often happen, where the circumstances combine to allow one a moment like that. But the entire herd walked right past our vehicle. Two little ones came barreling up to us full of excitement. And they even tried to touch the car at one point. Very, very tiny baby elephants. The adults were totally relaxed with us. It was very special. I loved every single minute of it. There's just Ellies everywhere at the moment. Okay, quick question. Joe, if we can show this elephant but only its head, the one that we've been looking at, let's see who's been paying attention. Let's have a quick conversation.
On the left.
Yeah, the one on the left. Male or female, everyone? Regular viewers might know this individual. We've seen it a few times. Male or female elephant? Hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Because we're always talking about how utterly perplexing it is that the female elephants in the Mara have such long tusks, whereas the male elephants in the Mara have pretty average sized tusks, I would say. So male or female? The clues are all there. It's more just to emphasize how much more confusing our jobs got. Lots of you far too quick for me. Kathy, Linda, Parlin, Kestrel Fox, many of you already caught on to the fact that it's a female. That was sort of the point that I was trying to drive home, was just how massive the tusks of the females get here. I know I've been harping on about it. You'd think I'd be used to it by now, but it still takes me by surprise. So much so that I ended up confusing a young male for a female because I was just, I don't know, a bit confused by the whole thing. Where are we going to go? We're going to keep running. We're going to keep running in that direction, I think. I don't know if it's going to be of any help to us, because if it does hit us, that's the marshiest area we could possibly reach. David, in terms of the different shades of grey, that... no, I can't even bring myself to be that lame. I was going to make a joke about there being 50 different elephant colours to 50, you know, you get it. Elephant's colour is pretty standard. I have never closely examined the minutiae of the differences in terms of the shades of grey, but all elephants that I've seen in different areas are pretty much the same shade of grey. What you will find, though, is sometimes, like with rhino, sometimes you'll find that they look a slightly different colour because they've spent a lot of time rolling in the sand or mud bathing, and a lot of it's caked to their skin. Now, that sounds like a silly thing to say, one might think, but it did actually cause confusion for quite a few guests that I've had in the past. With warthog, because of course the mud clings to the fur and makes them look a different color. With rhino, with elephant. So no, there's no major differences in their skin color, but at the same time, they can look different colors. Often more brown than anything else. I'm driving Scott's vehicle today, and she's very pumpy. Hey, Pucker. Mila's getting some TLC. Mila's my usual vehicle, and Pucker is... I'm just not quite used to her suspension levels. Ooh! It's getting colder. I happen to know for a fact, though, that Jahawi dislikes the cold as much as I do. Jahawi and I are on the same page where that is concerned. See? Ellie's everywhere. Dina K, your wish is my command. Especially in this area, I think there's the potential that we could have a very much elephant-themed first hour. Elephant and giraffe. It's becoming a bit of a pattern in my drives. Now, Scarlett, back to our discussion about our elephant. Let's get a bit closer. And then we can answer your question. Let's first get ourselves into a position so that we can look at this elephant's tusks. There we go. While I wrap myself around. It's a young male. I'm not going to ask you to tell me whether it's a male or a female this time around. So, Scarlet, are the tusks hollow or are they solid? They are solid as your front teeth, for that in fact is what they are. Though an elephant's tusks are modified in sizes, and we've spoken actually at great length about it recently. We've spoken a lot about tusks. It's funny how themes seem to occur in cycles, almost, if I could describe it like that. First the trunk, then the tusks. So it's solid, and they're made of the same substance that your teeth are made out of. What makes them ivory? Well, technically, and this is actually a question we were speaking about a couple of days ago, technically ivory is something that's been worked and decorated by human beings. So hippo tusks work, elephant tusks work, warthog occasionally. And when you think of it as people actually sitting and carving an animal's teeth, it becomes a very strange concept indeed. I'm going to put my second jacket on. The drive has only just started, and the second jacket is going to go on. See, lots of elephants in the background. I'm going to try and see if we can find some youngsters for you. I don't know why it feels like there are more elephants than before I went on leave, but it really does feel that way. It can't be the case though, could it? I've discussed this before, but I really don't know. It just feels like there's more of them. Might explain why the Angamas have been absent from this drainage line, because I've been looking for them every morning and I haven't seen them around here, unless they've gone to hide in the forest. But with this many elephants around, they might have got tired of being chased. Chandre jokingly said today there's no wind. Well, I think he actually seriously said there was no wind today. I think he'll find there's plenty. Alright. Onwards we go. Let's see if we can find ourselves a breeding herd. Brent, the gestation period of an elephant is the longest of any mammal that you will see here. It is 22 months, so nearly 2 years. Imagine. I wonder at what point, I always find myself wondering questions like this. I wonder at what point the elephant realizes that she's pregnant, particularly if she's had a calf before. And I think about it particularly with respect to elephants because they're very intelligent. And they do have a degree or a level of self-awareness. So much so that if you put an elephant in front of a mirror, it will learn that what it's looking at is its own reflection. They've got a sense of individuality. It's an odd thing to think about, but I often find myself wondering about that. What on earth is wrong with you? Upset elephant? What's going on, guys? They're all running away from me like I smell bad. I'm deeply insulted. No, come on, that's ridiculous. Tail stiff? That can't have been me. They are so used to vehicles. Weird. Okay, well, I try and see if I can figure out what spooked those elephants. Perhaps they heard that Brent Leo Smith had made his way all the way down from the mountain, having fought off the gremlins. They saw how he treated the gremlins, and they decided they had to run as well.
Oh, hello. Sorry we're a bit late. Thank you to Alex and Edwin for doing some technical magic on our comms. My name is Brent Leo Smith. I have the Batman on camera today. And as you can see, jackets are on. The wind is blowing and there is a large storm heading in our direction. Hopefully it blows beyond and past and we don't get too wet. Otherwise, we will be doing a tent show from inside our mobile tents. Remember, hashtag Safari Live if you have any questions about the wondrous animals that are around us. Now, I know Jamie's been spending some time with some elephants, some giraffe, but we've got some elephants of our own. A female with very nice long ivory coming up right next to us here. Hi guys. Now they won't mind the cool, windy weather. In fact, they might quite enjoy it. You can see the grass waving in the wind. And at some point today, when it was hot, this elephant went for a mud bath. Quite recently, actually, because you can still see some wet splodges of mud on her. This is more than likely one of her offspring. Older offspring, of course, probably around 10, 11 or so. Mia would like to know, why do elephants enjoy taking mud baths? Well, Mia, because it feels good. So there's other reasons why, but I think a lot of the reason is because it feels good. It helps them cool down when they're hot, specifically when they spray mud on their ears or behind their ears. It does help them to cool down. It also, once it dries, encases parasites like ticks, and they will fall off once they die inside the mud, and or when the elephant scratches against a tree and the ticks are encased in the mud, it'll fall off. So that's why they like mud baths, and it does look like jolly good fun, to be honest. Here you go. Looks like she's going to have a little scratch on the tree. You can suddenly see the tree moving a bit more than just the wind, and there we go. See, she's scratching where she's put mud behind her ear. So that's a soft point for elephants, where they do often get parasites like ticks. And there we go, she's going to now try to scratch her ear on the side of the tree and get rid of some of those ectoparasites. Hi, Holden. Holden would like to know, how much food can an elephant eat, and are they fussy eaters? Holden, they're not too fussy eaters, but an elephant female probably eats around 100 kilograms, around 100 kilograms of food in a day. A big elephant bull can eat up to 200 plus kilograms in a day. Now, it's very interesting because here in the Mara, they're almost exclusively grass eaters, and that's because of the bountiful grass we get here. Now, in other parts of Africa, elephants will eat about 80% grass during the rainy season, when there's lots of grass about, and about 20% trees and bushes. Now, you'll find in the Mara that it'll probably stay around 80% grass throughout the year, with 20% trees and bushes. Now, in the dry season, in Djuma, where we will be going to a little bit later in South Africa, that number changes. The elephants will eat about 20% grass and 80% trees and bushes. Oh, they're just going to rub her bum. Oh, that looks good. Oh, so much fun. You can actually see the dust from the mud coming off. And of course, that's another area where there are some sensitive bits that the ticks can get into. Now, Lucy's wondering, when an elephant loses its tusk, and you can see there those beautiful big tusks, how long until they're replaced? Lucy, they don't unfortunately get replaced if they've been broken too far low. They do grow throughout the elephant's life, but they only get one set of tusks in their life. So when they're broken, unfortunately, that's that. They do have multiple sets of teeth that come and rotate through their mouth as they get worn down and as they age. But once they are after their last set, and that's generally when elephants die, when they're unable to eat enough food to keep that massive body moving around. So they'll normally die of starvation. And quite often it'll happen around a waterhole or a river where there's water, so they'll keep drinking. And sometimes, not very often, but sometimes even what happens, they get so weak that they can't get out of the water, and then they'll drown. Well, we're going to leave these beautiful elephants and see what else we can find. Kaylin would like to know, are elephants as destructive of trees here as they are in Djuma? Well, see, I disagree with you. I don't think elephants are destructive of trees at all. It is what they were designed to do, and the bush was designed to deal with it. So a lot of people get all up in a twist about the elephant destruction. There's no such thing. It's elephant activity, in my opinion. And what happens is, if you look at a lot of areas, a lot of those trees that get broken and fed on by the elephants during the winter months, which is when they're highly fed on, will then be completely recovered in the summer, where the elephants focus on grass. Nature is a balance. Elephants were designed to feed on trees, so it's not elephant destruction at all. It's just elephant activity. And also, in a lot of those cases, when an elephant is feeding on a tree, it's also feeding on the fruits. So elephants are one of the main dispersal agents of marulas, even the balanites fruits here. So they are very important in terms of fruit distribution. So it's not elephant damage or elephant destruction, it's elephant activity. Now, there's a lot of people who might disagree with me on that, but I know, I'm very certain on this, and I'm having spent a lot of time with elephants in a lot of different parts of Africa. Now, there's a area in Botswana where people tend to think that elephants have done so much damage and whatnot, called chobe, but everyone fails to remember. They say all the big trees are gone. Well, elephants can't really push down big trees once they're big. And what people fail to remember is that Chobe sawmills was active until 1960. So the people took away the big trees and are now looking for someone to blame. Now, that's a lovely elephant bull. I'm wondering if it's... I just want to see if it's one of the ones I saw yesterday. So I saw 3 very big bulls yesterday on the other side of the river, but pretty much opposite here. No, it's not him. I thought it might be an elephant bull that had a collar on that I saw yesterday, and he might have swum across the river, but it's not. It's this old bull we do see quite often in this very spot. He really does love the lush green grass that grows where the water seeps down from the mountain. Okay, now my plan is to keep moving towards the north, away from the rain that's coming in from the south. Hopefully it'll miss me. I'm going to go look for the Olololo Pride, who've been eating lots of warthogs. And my first drive back, we actually saw them catch a baby warthog. So we're going to go have a squiz around there, see if they're around. There are a lot of ellies around at the moment. Seems like the wind's died down a bit. Is the rainstorm going to miss us? We can only hope. Very important.
Oh dear, I don't know where Brent has vanished to. He should be okay here in terms of signal, but it doesn't seem to be the case. So we apologize for moments like that, but bringing you live safaris, things go wrong every now and again. Now, Brent's mentioned that he's going to go and look for the Olololo Pride. I can tell him that the 3 marsh breakaway lionesses are along the lugger that runs close to the little governor's entrance. I'm not sure, I didn't go all the way towards Chitwa airstrip, and I know that there's lions over in that direction, but if Brent is heading in that direction, then I'll change my route slightly, since the storm appears to have pretty much blown past us. I thought of something with regards to the Australian question. What animals would survive best in Australia? Once upon a time, I can't remember, forgive me, which part of Australia it was, had a pretty large problem with a large amount of cow dung. Too much cow dung to be precise. So the answer to that was to bring in some, this is true, bring in some South African dung beetles to help to separate the dung and move it off and redisperse it in the way that it should be. So dung beetles, of course, they'll either consume the dung in the pile of dung itself, or they will roll up little balls and they'll take it away and they'll dig it down and their larvae will eat it, or they will dig straight down and their larvae will eat it. So dung beetles dispose very effectively of the large amounts of dung that we find out here in Africa. Long story short, they shipped across a whole load of dung beetles, but being particularly cautious about, phrase this politely, being particularly cautious about bringing in some kind of odd disease or something like that, they put the poor dung beetles in quarantine and cleaned them up of any external parasites. And as a result, as soon as they released all the dung beetles all died. Because dung beetles have a special type of mite that lives on them, and it helps to keep their joints clean in their exoskeleton. And as a result, the poor dung beetles all locked up, their joints all locked up, and they couldn't move, and the end result was that they died. And it was not something that was considered to be a success. And of course, our African dung beetles, experts at disposing of piles of dung, and ultimately a buffalo's pile of dung is not that dissimilar. In fact, it's almost identical to that of a cow. Now in the background you'll see there's a lilac-breasted roller fluttering about, capitalizing on the movement and the feeding of the buffalo, not in terms of waste material, but in terms of swooping in and catching any insects that they might disturb. So just like fork-tailed drongos or egrets, there's quite a few bird species that will do it, wattled starlings. The lilac-breasted roller has learnt that this is a good place to be. Right, apparently Brent has passed on a message that he's quite happy for us to go to the lions that we had this morning. If he's happy, I'm happy. I was heading in that direction, but slowly. I'm meandering in that direction because when I left them this morning they were tucked under a tree and they didn't look like they were going anywhere. But in this weather they might just choose to capitalize upon it. There you go. Not often you see a starling on a buffalo's back. What are you after? Is it just a useful sitting point? Now, Kathy, you say that you have buffalo there and that they make good cheese. Kathy, I'm not sure where there is. There's the lions. I'm an absolute idiot. I'm sorry, we're sitting staring at buffalo. Kathy, hold that thought. We'll get back to buffalo cheese in a moment. I can see lions. Having spoken about not being able to find the Angama pride, sitting here chatting away about buffalo, and there's an entire pride of lions off to my left. Okay, well there we go. Brent is welcome to go to the marsh breakaways. I'll stick with the Angamas, I think. I just have to go around and back towards where they are. But I think that's what I shall do. There we go. See? Lions. Kathy, I assume in wherever you may be, you could easily be South African, in which case you would be talking about Cape buffalo. I've never tried or considered milking buffalo for cheese, but it doesn't surprise me. But let me know where you're from, and that might help us narrow down exactly what type of buffalo cheese is the best. Okay, let's go round there. And I think let's go around there quite quickly because the elephants are moving in that direction, and we might get some interesting interaction with the Angamas and the elephants. Elephants are largely okay walking around lions, I've found here in the Mara, as long as they can see them. Goodbye, buffalo. I'm not sure what species Kathy was talking about, but I would say that those male buffalo probably wouldn't make good cheese. I think you'll all agree. At least we can be certain on that. This is a long road around. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet regardless. So Deadhead's Tom, talking on quite a large change of subject, was wondering about wild dogs and if they would ever be introduced into the Mara as a way of expanding their distribution or helping them to regain their original distribution. Because there would have been wild dogs here, and there were wild dogs here, and the population suffered tremendously for a variety of reasons. A big one would have been the transmission of disease. Now what you'll find, and I'm honestly not 100% sure on exactly what the plans would be for the management of the Mara and the reintroduction of wild dogs. And there is a pack, there's two that have been seen around here, and there's a slightly larger pack in one of the conservancies, or that has been seen in one of the conservancies recently. I can't remember which one it was. So there are still dogs here. They move through every now and again. I don't know whether there would be any plans to reintroduce them though, or if there are any plans to reintroduce them. There are programs that do essentially help to redistribute endangered species. So the WWF, for example, runs a black rhino program where a number of black rhino are moved back onto a reserve when that reserve can show that they meet certain criteria and that the rhino will be protected. And so it isn't a situation where an endangered species is transported somewhere and instantly finds itself at risk. And there's a possibility that that might be a reason why they might not introduce wild dogs yet in terms of getting vaccination programs, because there are quite a few feral dogs around. There are also quite a few domestic dogs, and there's no fences, so there's a risk of them coming into contact with domestic breeds, and without a proper vaccination program, again, don't get me wrong, there could easily be plenty of vaccination programs out there, but they run the risk of contracting especially canine distemper and rabies. And those are two diseases that have done, especially canine distemper, tremendous damage to wild dog populations. It might be a factor against taking a or trying to expand the population of wild dogs, but putting them into an area that might not be safe for them yet. I don't know what the thoughts would be, but wild dogs make their way into all sorts of places. Brent wondering about the location of the lions. They are on the airstrip side, not far from the crossing point that is just off the Governor's Road. So the crossing point through that lugger, where there is I think of it as a graveyard of dead trees that have all sort of washed up along there. They're just past that, but on the airstrip side. Or they were. And not far up that road either. Underneath a tree. I'm hoping that these lions aren't too far from the road, because this is one of our non-off-roading areas. Mandy, do you want to hold that thought for the question on the Angama Pride? let's wait until we get there, and I'll explain a little bit more about their dynamics. And the reason that I say that is we're not that close, but we're fairly close. And I always find it nicer to actually be able to show you rather than just tell you. And at the same time, we can do a head count of the various cubs, and that will help. I don't know. I don't know if you're anything like me, but I find it easier to remember things if I see them, rather than simply being told them. Sorry, Jahawi, this is a very bumpy road. I'm going to start to get seasick. John? Yes, I got lots of tips for how to find lions when in the Mara. Drive around enough and you will find a lion. There are so many lions out here that I would be very surprised if you were to drive around and not find at least one lion. My question would be whereabouts, because if you were driving around the triangle, I could give you some very, very easy pointers, or possibly even the Mara National Reserve as well. Checking around the river is always a good idea, because there's lots of prey, especially during the dry season. There's lots of prey around there, and there's a good chance you'll find them. Or along luggers, so essentially either smaller river systems is basically what a lugger is. Not always flowing, sometimes dry, but the vegetation's nice and thick, and it's a good place for lions to be. Then, if I'm honest with you, drive onto a ridge, find yourself a little bit of height, and look around. And where you see a collection of cars, not in the middle of the day, because a lot of people leave in the middle of the day, but where you see a collection of cars, there is a good chance that it's either a lion or a cheetah or a rhino. Or a leopard, if you're lucky. I know that sounds like a ridiculous tip, but it's a good one. It works. Even just staying on the main roads, you should be guaranteed of a lion sighting, or almost guaranteed to find at least one lion. And another tip for you, John, because the guides all have radios, stop and ask one of the guides. You see somebody driving around, ask them. Everybody here has been exceptionally friendly, I've found. So just ask nicely if anybody's seen anything, and keep a note of where your lines are, so that if you're asked the same question in return, you can share that information. There we go. Oh, scattered lions everywhere. Now, where's going to be our best view? Lioness is up. Okay. Let me just help Jahawi out a little bit here in terms of angles. Ah, there's just one cub that's hiding behind the tree. But otherwise, I think I've got most of them in view. So, we were talking about the size of the Angama lion pride. It consists of 4 lionesses and 13 cubs. So that would make it in total 17 lions. Now, let's do a count, I think, from left to right. Let's see if we've got everybody here. I always like to count the cubs as well, just to check. Okay, so let's go, yeah, from right to left is fine. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 lions in one sighting. And for once out in the open and not all scattered and wandering about. Impressive. considering that when I first started here, arrived here, they only had 6 larger cubs. Or was it 7? It was 7 large cubs. And the rest of the 6 of them were still tiny, tiny, tiny. I can't believe how large they've got now. Some of the older ones are even getting their little manes. Fork in the road. You would, of course, have heard the discussion between Brent and myself through Alice, who is directing this afternoon. These two. Lazy fighting is what that's called. Lazy playing. Now, you're wondering about whether or not the lion prides interact with each other, since obviously Brent and I are quite close in terms of proximity. Lion prides in the Mara will avoid each other. Like all lion prides are territorial. And they have quite a large home range, and within that home range they will have a territory that they're defending at that particular point in time. Roaring is a great way of avoiding a rival pride, because it's their way of saying, we're here, you stay on your side, we'll stay on our side, and we won't have to battle it out. Occasionally encounters happen, in which case you'll find that there will be quite a serious battle between the various lions. So between prides, they can and occasionally do fight quite viciously. Just like these cubs, you can see they're fighting viciously. Fighting to the death, lazily, on their backs. But occasionally lion prides do encounter each other, and then they do scrap. Most of the time, it's not as serious as fights between rival male coalitions, but it can be. Wild animals like a lion are very much instinct-driven, and things can get to the point where their instincts and the fury or perhaps adrenaline is a better way of describing it. The adrenaline of a situation could potentially get the better of them, so much so that lionesses might be killed in a fight between prides. Here's one of our females, the lovely Angama lionesses. Decided she wasn't really interested in the cubs' attentions. So this is where you lot have been hiding, except that I drove here this morning. So where were you? Where were you? And how full are you? You don't look very full. They've obviously picked a spot that has made the lapwing very, very upset. You won't be able to hear it now because of the wind, but it is screeching away at them. Although this is a non-off-roading area, this is a nice open spot, and I think what I'm going to do in these weather conditions, and with empty-bellied lions, all 13 of them, I'm going to sit with them, and I'm going to wait and see what transpires. So while we sit with our cats that we have found, let's go and find out whether Brent has had the same degree of luck.
Well, welcome back. We're still in search of the Olololo pride here along their favourite lugger. This zebra seems to be staring at something. What are you staring at, zebra? Let's go have a closer look. Now, I think we've had a bit of broken telephone between Jamie and myself with Final Control in terms of where Jamie last had these lions. And I just wanted to ask Final Control to check. Is it above, or is it towards Chitwa Tembo from the crossing of the lugger, or is it towards Little Governors from the crossing? Now, I've found them around this lugger a lot. It's a great place to hunt from. They can hide, and there's lots of animal paths that cross the lugger that they can just wait and pounce out of. But there's a lot of zebra right next to the lugger here. Hello, Ladybird. Ladybird is wondering how old are lions as a species. They're about 500,000 years old. The modern day lion. There's been different other lion species like the cave lions and saber-toothed cats and that have gone extinct. But modern lions are a little bit older than modern human beings. Not much. Okay. So, I don't know if Alice got that. I said, just can you check with Jamie whether it was towards Chitwa Tembo or towards Little Governor's where she had the lions last. Let's go have one quick look over here. Who knows, maybe we'll find a leopard along the lugger. There we go. There's a sooty chat making lots of noise on top there. Oh, there's a one off to the left. Oh, there we go. He's actually, no, he's fine. You can see that little white shoulder patch. His girlfriend's not as pretty as him. So that's the male. There comes the girlfriend. Oh, she just flapped past. She lacks those very prominent white shoulder straps. And she's not a really dark black. She's almost sort of matte black rather than shiny black. Okay, well, let's keep moving along the lugger. You can see we're literally surrounded by storms on all sides. But so far we're in the one little patch of sunshine. And I'm hoping to keep it that way. A lovely big fig tree. Look at that lovely big fig tree. Massive fig, probably hundreds of years old. Probably started its life around another tree. And you can see as we look lower down on the bark how there's constant sort of stretching down to the ground of the root systems. Beautiful. Okay, well, I'm still looking for lions. We're going to go back to Jamie. Who's got them?
So while Brent looks for his lions, we've been lucky. And I promise you, these lions were not here this morning, which means that they were moving about during possibly the hottest part of the day, around about 10 this morning. Interesting. Although we know that Mara lions do that. So they are relaxed for the moment, although some of the cubs, or the older cubs, seem to be quite enthralled by the presence of the elephants. This one, however, this one appears to be quite enthralled by the appearance of its stomach. Little signs of restlessness from the cubs. They're not right fast asleep. Look at that little head poking out from behind Mum there. So just to give you an idea, we've done a count in terms of number of heads, but just to give you an idea of ages. So the oldest cubs are around about, they would have been born around March, because they were about 2 months old when Brent first saw them. So they would have been born around February, March, which would make them 8-9 months old. The youngest cubs were born at the beginning of June, which would make them July, August, September, October, November, 5 months old now. So you've got a range of about 8 months to around about, or 8 or 9 months to around about, what did I just say? 5 months. So a nice combination of ages. And what's nice in this particular group is that quite a few of them are young males. Obviously, it would be great if they were all females and they all stayed together and we had a pride of 17 lionesses when they all reached adulthood. But for the young males, having more brothers and more cousins of a similar age means that they don't have to strike out on their own when the time comes. Frances from Israel, do you know, I've actually I shouldn't be worried about her. I have no reason to be worried about her. I just haven't seen the pale cub since I got back from leave. I can only imagine how much bigger she must be, but I haven't seen her. They're the cubs that have been watching the elephants the whole time, playfully thinking about stalking them, I think. No, Frances, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where she is. I haven't been able to find her, but she is part of a different pride. So she's part of a pride that has the territory adjacent to the Angama's territory, and that is the Sausage Tree Pride. So for those of you that are new viewers or haven't seen these live safaris before, the pale lion cub is a lioness that is very, very pale in colour. They're the elephants, and one youngster wandering about at the back. Now, we often get asked about whether lions would ever think about taking on an elephant calf. In this situation, no, absolutely not. And in fact, lions very seldom hunt elephants, which makes sense. Playful cubs stalk elephants, but that's a different matter. That's all part of the learning experience, and that's all part of growing up. But lions will very seldom risk hunting an elephant, and particularly a calf, when the entire herd will step in to protect it. But there are certain lion prides that are specialized in hunting elephants, and generally speaking they will go for young males that are pushed to the outskirts of their herd or wandering about on their own, where they're less likely to have the protection of the larger females. And even then it is a lengthy process. There we go. There's one of the youngsters that looks like it has a bit of a mane. At this distance it's quite... Yep, definitely. There you go. Little sideburns. I've got such a soft spot for young male lions. Brent, I can tell you safely that young male lion's has not got mating on his mind and will not for a while yet. He hasn't quite reached that point. But Brent is wondering about when a male lion knows that a female is receptive and ready to mate. Smell. Pure sense of smell. So I'll go into the signs that the female gives as well in a little bit, particularly with leopards. But essentially, the male will pick up on the scent. They've got very, very powerful senses of smell. The part of their brain devoted to interpreting that smell is very, very well developed. So essentially, they are able to smell concentrations of hormones in the urine. So that's the way that they pick up on whether or not a female is in estrus. And you'll often see them do what's known as a phlegm and grimace, which is when they... I don't want to do it. They pull their top lips and they crunch their noses. And they do that. Beautiful. And it basically draws the smell into the roof of their mouth, and they can essentially taste it. But the female gives them signs as well. So none of these lionesses are going to at any point have or go into estrus yet. They've all of them are mothers to one of the 13 cubs, or a couple of the 13 cubs, so they've got a long way to go. But when a lioness is in estrus, she will occasionally seek out the company of the male, and she gives him certain signs. And you'll see it more clearly in the flirtatious behavior of a leopard. A female leopard will walk up to a potential mate and rub herself up against him, waggle her rear end in his direction, and then promptly lie down in front of him to give him the full encouragement necessary. And a lioness does occasionally do the same, although a lot of the time with lions the mating is more commonly initiated by the male. But the female's instinct is there, and you will see her get up and go and rub heads with the male, and then do what's known as the lordosis reflex as well, which is basically one of the ways that the lioness ensures fertilization, well, not ensures fertilization, but it's understood that it's one of her ways of trying to, or nature's ways of trying to increase chances of fertilization. Now the fathers of these cubs, speaking of mating, are the Chitwa males. Tim, no. While we watch our young and vulnerable lions, there are no animals that prey specifically on lion cubs. There are lots of threats to lion cubs, but it doesn't really come from an animal that has in any way evolved to utilize lion cubs as a resource or particularly targets them. All other predators are a threat to young lions. Hyenas, cheetah even potentially, leopard, anything that finds them is a potential threat to a lion cub in terms of predators, and that is because it's not about food, although a hyena might eat them. Shame she's got a bit of a limp. It's that same lioness I saw the other day with the limp. She's still struggling a little bit. Same leg. Yeah, it's definitely her. Sore left front leg. Polly, no, I've got no idea what caused that limp. I would say most likely an injury that she got when she was hunting a buffalo or something like that, or a zebra. We saw the giraffe. We spoke earlier about the fact that they could potentially kick and kill a lion. Well, in this situation, an animal that is fighting for its life, even if it's a zebra or an antelope, can injure a lion. And in this case, I think, or she might even have twisted her shoulder, or her ankle, well, her wrist, or something like that, whilst chasing after something else. Oh! Very friendly greeting from the lioness there. Oh! A little bit of discipline. Okay, well, it sounds as though Brent might be struggling to find his lions. Let's go and see whether he's reached the spot that I described to him and whether the lions are still there.
Well, I think they might have moved from where they were this morning. So we're going to go check somewhere else. Another area they like to hang out in. So they should have been around here under one of these trees somewhere. Just lots of zebra and general game so far. Unless they are very, very flat under this second tree coming up. I'm not seeing anything just yet. The weather can't decide what to do. It was really hot 5 minutes ago, now it's cold again. But the storm seemed to be staying away. We had a bit of a drizzle, but nothing too serious. Tim is wondering, do the big cats like the rain? His cat doesn't. Well, Tim, it depends. I mean, howling gales and storms, they can use to their advantage when it comes to hunting, because the senses of the antelope are also lessened. But if it's been raining for a couple of hours, the big cats don't like it either. They sort of hunker down. Sorry, 1 second. Binoculars. I'm pretty sure it's not a lion, but I'm going to double check. It's not a lion. Okay. So Mia is wondering, what is the difference between a game ranger and a guide? Well, generally a guide is someone who takes people on safari, guests. A game ranger is normally more involved in the day-to-day running of a reserve, anti-poaching, fence maintenance, road maintenance, that type of stuff, where there is a guide takes people out in safari. Now, where the confusion comes is from the old days, where your guides and your game rangers used to do a lot of the same work. So I'm going to stop and say hello here. Hi guys, how are you doing? Any luck today?
Yeah, we were down at the border. We saw the two brothers.
Down at the border?
Yeah, but it's you know, cooperative.
Yeah.
Just the last stretch, just before you go to the corner there.
Yeah.
I think there were 2 lions this morning and they are lying.
Okay, I'll go have a look there then now. Thanks very much. Okay, so carrying on, guys. As we were saying, originally guides or rangers, as we used to be called, back when I started, sure, it's getting old these days, you used to be responsible for a lot more than just guiding safari guests, whereas these days the distinction is quite different. A ranger is more to do with fault ecology, maintenance, all that type of stuff. Oh, there's a nice bird. Don't walk into the trees. You see, on the edge of the trees there. Okay, zoom where you are, Craig. You can see it there. A little bit to, wait, to the, where are you looking? To the left. Other left. And there we go, zoom. A little bit more to the left. Stop. There we go. There we go. A saddle-billed stork. Now, as the safari industry has developed over the years, and there has been that difference between a guide and a ranger. A guide is someone who guides guests. A ranger is more to do with all sorts of stuff: felt management, fence management, anti-poaching, all that type of stuff. Whereas safari guide generally deals almost exclusively with safari guests. Bye-bye, saddle-billed stork. So I've got a lead on some lions, which are different from the ones Jamie was talking about, at Kaburini, at the graveyard. So we're going to head towards the graveyard now. I wonder, it sounds like there's some males there, so it could be some of the Chitwa or triangle boys, depending on how you refer to them. So while I'm still on the search for lions, let's go across to Jamie, who's with the Angama Pride.
Our lions that are sort of, never mind. I was about to say showing signs of stirring themselves. The two older cubs had got up and were wrestling a little bit. Oh, here we go. We're going to go wandering. No, just repositioning for a more comfortable spot. And flop. So you can imagine how hard the lionesses have to work at the moment. Now, some of you, I imagine, might have teenage children. Right, so you know what is involved in keeping them fed. Now imagine having 12, or 13 I mean. 13 hungry lion cubs to keep well fed. 7 of whom are at the point where they're going through a massive growth spurt. And you get an idea as to just how busy the lionesses have to keep, or have to be. Constantly trying to feed ever-hungry cubs. And as the cubs get hungrier, what they do is they harass the lionesses more and more frequently. That was a wattled lapwing, by the way, and it's the same one that I mentioned was very unhappy, but now it's unhappy about something else. I'm just trying to see if we can get a view of the others, but I don't think so. It's a type of bird, for our new viewers, that is very, very unimpressed with the presence of another wattled lapwing. So that was what that was all about, if you could hear that, which I assume you could. The storm appears to be building from the other side. I'm just going to pretend that's not the case and we're not surrounded, or at least not between two major storms. Now this is very much going to be a question of patience here. I don't think these lions are going to be all that motivated to move yet, but as it starts to get darker, and especially if the storm hits, then we will see a change in pace. If the rain comes here, I'm almost hoping that it does, because then we will get to see these lionesses in action. They take full advantage of the confusion that a storm brings. And you can see she's looking off into the distance. She's actually looking at the buffalo bulls that we were sitting with when we stopped, and then we realized that there were lions on the other side of us. So that's what she's looking at, and possibly trying to assess whether or not there are any breeding buffalo with them. In other words, if it's a breeding herd or just the males. I doubt the Angama females will take on an adult male buffalo. Where? That's a bush. It is a bush. You are correct. They might take on a bush, I suppose, if they're feeling impatient. I think it's somewhere there. Wait. We try and work out a line. I can't see them anymore. I could see them. I promised I could see them. Sorry, Jahawi, that was my fault. I know that she was looking at them, but I didn't realize they'd vanished. I can... It doesn't matter. You'll have to take my word for it. They are very far away. So, Joy, you're wondering about the black backs of the lion's ears. So, essentially, black is a color that stands out very clearly out here in the wilderness, where most things are green and most things are camouflaged. Black and white are colors that stand out clearly. And the lion's ears, along with their tails and along with their sort of facial expressions, are one of their most important tools when it comes to communicating visually. So because they can't talk to each other, well, they can vocalize at each other. There we go. We've got two young males over there. Just almost at the puberty point. So essentially the black emphasizes the body language of the lion, and research suggests that it plays an enormous role. The movements of the ears play an enormous role in coordinating a lion hunt. So a lion is the only social big cat, and the secret to their success is their ability to hunt together as a team. They all share the food, but they all work together to get the prize. And a lot of research is now suggesting that amazing instinctive coordination of the lions is actually communicated and planned more than we realize. This lapwing is still furious with the lions. It's now turned its attentions to the lions and is dive bombing the cubs once again, and trying to distract them. I wonder if it doesn't have... just as I said that, it landed. It's landed in front of those two there. You can see they're looking at it. There it is. There it is. It is thoroughly unimpressed with them. That is the wattled lapwing that's been making all the noise. Dive bombing the lion cubs. Soaring backwards and forwards. I wonder if it doesn't have a nest. It's possible, because it's also been trying to distract the lions. It's landing in front of them. Sally, I actually thought a moment earlier that one of them was going to go for that lapwing. While you were with Brent, it was stalking forward after it, and the lapwing was not unaware of it, but was sort of just jogging in front of it. And I really thought for 1 second that the cub might go for it. So possibly, would they catch it? It's highly unlikely. They're not overly coordinated yet. I don't think that they would manage. But they might go for it because they're young. The adult lionesses probably wouldn't bother. Oh, lapwing, you are so angry. Here it comes in again. So upset. Okay, it's moved away from the lions now. But still tweeting angrily. I'm not sure. Peeping angrily, I think, or piping. Maybe I'd call it piping, the sound. Oh, we've got a little bit of wakefulness from these cubs. Oh, bye-bye. I was just about to say I was going to try and move forward a little bit, and both of them rolled behind the hill. You know what? This would be a really good opportunity. Once these cubs are up and about, it would be a really, really good opportunity to actually get the exact ratio of males to females. I think that we should try and make that our goal for today's safari. Right, we're going to be joined by a school drive now, so I'm going to say, not farewell, but I'm going to send you over to Brent so that he can welcome the schools joining us this afternoon.
Welcome to our schools today. I've forgotten it. Centreville, Red Bank and Rice Creek. There we go. Great to have you on board. I heard there was a big male lion around this area this morning, so I'm coming to have a closer look. to see if he's still around. He could have moved into the bushes to have a snooze, but hopefully we'll find him. Now, it's so good to have the schools with us, so I want lots of questions from you guys, lots and lots of questions, and about anything you want to know about all the animals out here. Have I spotted something? Not a lion, not a lion. We'll keep moving on. We're going to see if we can find some lions. There's lots of different animals out there. So why don't you guys tell us what animals you would like to see? Let me know what animals you want to see. I'm looking for lions. Maybe you want me to look for elephants or buffalo instead. You're going to have to tell me what you want to see. Right, well, we're going to keep looking for these lions for now till I hear from you. There's an animal that doesn't like lions and tries to stay away from lions as much as possible, but lions really like them. And that's because it's one of a lion's favorite foods. It is the warthog. So those of you who've watched The Lion King will know him as Pumbaa. Now, unlike The Lion King, Pumbaa and Simba are not really friends. Simba eats Pumbaa out here. Hey, you got to avoid Simbas at all cost. There we go. So warthogs live in burrows at night underground. They only come out during the day to eat. So when it gets dark, they start heading down underground. Your soul would like to know, do lions attack other lions? Indeed they do. Lions fight with each other quite often and even fight with their friends when they're eating dinner. So lions will fight with each other all the time. Okay, now let's keep looking for these lions. Hopefully they're not fighting. They could have moved off and gone to sleep in these thick bushes here when it was hot today, but the temperature's coming down, so there's a good chance they might move out. Now, isn't this exciting? Not only do you get to watch us and all the animals in the Masai Mara in Kenya, we're now sending you all the way about 2,000 miles to South Africa to see what's happening in the greater Kruger.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Sabi Sands in South Africa. A very hot and sunny day here. My name is Steve Falconbridge and I'm joined by Sebastian on the camera, and we are here to entertain you, take you on a game drive in the Sabi Sands, and we're going to be focusing this afternoon on animals and how they adapt to the heat and temperature that this area has to offer. So please feel free to join us on the chat, send your questions through, any comments, and let's see what we can facilitate. Okay, we're going to head on, see if we can find any animals, but first of all let's send across here. We've got a steenbok animal, one of our smallest antelope in the savannah. See if Seb can get it there. You can see it there, very small antelope. You can see by the coloration, the whites on the belly, the brown upper parts, and I wonder if any of you out there can tell me if this is a male or female. Some people might be confused and think that that is actually a juvenile animal, but it is an adult, and it is quietly browsing. You can see just nibbling on the small shoots of the grass and the leaves that are coming through. Now that it is summer, we've had some rain, little bits of green shoots are coming through, but you'll notice the animal's also moving from one bit of shade to another. So for those of you unsure of what a juvenile is, an adult obviously is a mature individual, and a juvenile would be a child, a kid, for example. In human terms, you'd probably think of someone below the age of 12, probably you'd call a juvenile. In animal terms, juveniles, generally because they live a lot shorter, or animals live a lot shorter, juveniles would be a lot younger, maturing at an earlier age, maybe 3, 4, 5, depending on the species. So we look like we've lost sight of that animal. It's moved behind a big termite mound, and probably looking for some shade. We're going to maybe move on from here. It is quite hot to try to get the wind in our faces and try and cool ourselves down, see if we can move along the Mawati River. We're going to look for some animals hiding in the shade, and we're going to link to you for Noelle. She's got your striped pajama animals. Enjoy.
Good Good afternoon, Rice Creek, Red Bank, and Centerville Elementary. I am Noelle. Welcome to our safari this afternoon, and on camera, I have VM. How are you? Okay, it's very hot. It's 36 degrees Celsius, which is about 97 degrees Fahrenheit. It is boiling, boiling, boiling. But we are very lucky. We have some zebra and some impala in front of us here. The zebras are slowly making their way into the thicker bush, away from us, sadly, but into the shade, just feeding. But luckily our impala seem to still be in view. That one there is just doing a bit of scent marking, rubbing his gland on the on the tree branch there. I'm so sorry. What was Rice Creek Elementary hoping to see? Was it a zebra? Everyone loves a zebra. Yeah. Rice Creek Elementary, I also really love zebra. They're really beautiful. We're lucky. One of them has popped out again from those thicker bushes, just in front of our male impala there. There we are. We can see the wonderful stripes. Very different type of zebra from the zebra that you'll see up with Brent and Jamie in the Mara. This is what's known as a plains zebra. Brent and Jamie get Burchell's zebra up in the Mara. And when this one moves a little bit more to the left, what you're going to see is it goes black stripe, then white stripe, then black stripe, and in amongst some of the white stripes, especially around the rump, around the bum, is a very faint stripe. That's called a shadow stripe. The ones up by Jamie and Brent is a cousin of this one, and they tend not to have that shadow stripe there. Now, the purpose of a shadow stripe, I couldn't honestly tell you. For me, it's just one of those things that is what it is and just helps denote or show rather that this is a plain zebra as opposed to a Burchell's zebra, one of the few things between the two. Now, zebras are one of the amazing creatures that no matter how warm it is, they will still venture out and about for us to see. Same as that male impala that you can see right in front of the zebra there. Now, those zebras are eating grass, and he's still going at it. So we've got a little bachelor herd of impala here, and this male that's at the back is very determined to leave his scent everywhere and mark every little branch he comes up to, saying, "This is mine, this is mine." They have a couple of different glands. They've got glands in between their hooves, so when they walk, they leave a scent, and then he's got one there on his forehead, sort of where you would put an Alice band or a headband, and then he's got some under his eyes. Now, don't forget, everybody, we are live, we are interactive. You can follow us on #SafariLive on the Twitter or on the YouTube chat. Sorry, Diana, what was your question there? There he's still, that impala's still going at it. Where do lemurs live? Lemurs live in Madagascar. So Madagascar is an island that is off the eastern coast of Africa, well, southern Africa. And lemurs, like in the movie Madagascar, of course, they're a very special type of creature, and they only exist on that island. I've never been there. I would love to go. I would think it would be absolutely amazing. I also would love to see a fossa. A fossa is a predator of the lemurs and only lives on Madagascar. So that's on my bucket list of things to see and places to go, that's for sure. All right, well, as our impala and zebra are meandering about back into the thickets, we're going to carry on and see what else we can find for you. Brent has some cheeky little baboons up in the Mara that he would like to show you and see what you have to say.
Here we go, we have some wonderful little baboons. Look at the little ones scuttling about, playing, chasing each other. And these are olive baboons. So they're quite a big baboon species, and they've got big fluffy coats because it can get quite cold and quite wet here in the Mara. Hello, naughty. I always think baboons look like they've just done something wrong or they're about to. Maybe a bit like you guys watching. Are you good kids or naughty kids? The baboons are always quite naughty. But that's what makes them so much fun to watch on safari, because they're always up to something. There's a big male baboon coming in at the back, and that's the big daddy. Now, there'll be multiple big males in a troop that will look after the rest of them and protect them. Now, can you believe that a baboon's teeth, its big biting teeth, its canines are longer than a lion's, and they can be very, very vicious in defense of their families or with fighting with each other. Now let's go back a little bit, so where the rest of the troop is gone. So baboons are what we call omnivores. So we are also omnivores, which means we eat meat and vegetables. And nuts and fruit, and baboons will do the same. And if you're an impala, which is we're going to have a look at just behind the baboons now, you've got to be very careful when you've got babies, because baboons have been known to try attack baby impala. So here we go. But when they don't have babies, baboons and impala are often seen together. And you do often get mixed groups of animals, because the more of them, the more eyes. I got tangled in my words there. The more eyes you see, you have, the more likely you are to see predators. Oh, quickly look at these two. Look at these two playing. Little bit of rough and tumble. Let me up, let me up. Don't bully me. Oof, naughty baboons. Now, this is just playing. It's not serious. Oh, and off they scuttle to chase each other around in the trees, having a great old time this afternoon. Now, of course, they are animals with big teeth, bigger and thicker and stronger than a baboon's, or those little baboons in particular, but not as long as a big male baboons, and those animals the baboons will want to stay away from. It's the animals I couldn't find, but Jamie has.
We do indeed, and these two youngsters, I have to say, definitely don't have teeth as large as the baboons that Brent's been showing you. So not only do we have wrestling lions, we've actually got them in the most perfect setting. I just wanted to say a quick hello to the kids joining us. I hope you're excited to be on safari, perhaps as excited as these lion cubs. So they are having one serious wrestling match. The rest of their pride is still asleep. They're not being very entertaining, but this is what siblings are for. When your mom's asleep and nothing much exciting is happening, these two are keeping themselves entertained. So these are young lions. They're only about 8 months old. Oh, bop to the face. Getting whacked about the head. Yes, go get the rest of your pride. Get them up and moving. It's time to play now in this cool weather. Julian, I've completely forgotten what the question was. Oh yes, Julian, sorry, you wanted to know how close we can get to the lions. Pretty close. Oh, look at this. He's stalking. There's a baby elephant in the background as well, but this youngster is stalking one of his siblings or cousins. Julian, we could get as close potentially as maybe even 15 or so meters, which is around about 45 feet. There's Mum going up to rub heads. Oh no, that's not Mum, that's another youngster. So we could get very, very close, and the reason that we can get close to them is because they are not in any way threatened by us. So these lions grow up with safari vehicles moving about them at all times. So even when they're very young, they see safari vehicles and they learn that we are not dangerous or a threat to them. They also don't want to eat us. So we're not on their menu. It's just something that they see every day, like they see elephants, or perhaps they see termite mounds or trees or anything like that. So they've come to be very, very relaxed in the presence of our vehicles. So we could get very close, but most of the time it's actually better to let the animal come to you rather than going to the animal. Oh look, we found a chew toy. What have you got there? Our young lions at this age will still be teething. So gnawing on something like a stick or a bone is a really convenient way of helping to ease the discomfort of those teeth growing in. Now, I mentioned the elephants in the background, and just while our cub is lying down for now, Drake is wondering about the elephant's ears and why they are so large. Drake, they're very large because they act as an elephant's air conditioning unit. So what I mean by that is it gets very, very hot out here in Africa, or in parts of Africa, and the elephant is a very big animal. So as a result, it struggles to cool down. So it's got this very clever system where lots and lots of blood vessels flow through the elephant's ear, where the skin is quite thin. Then, when the wind blows over the ears, or when the elephant flaps its ears, the blood cools down. It's kind of like blowing on a hot cup of cocoa, or maybe on some hot food if it's too hot for you to eat. So it's kind of like that. So the air blows across the ears and it cools the blood down, and then that cool blood goes to the rest of the elephant. Now, you might have noticed, or maybe Brent mentioned, that it's quite cool and cloudy this afternoon, and you can see the clouds are building up on the horizon. Now, while we've been watching these elephants and watching the storm clouds with a bit of trepidation, because we don't want to get caught in the rain, we have a question coming through about whether or not elephants like the rain. I find that elephants are at their happiest when they're in the rain. It's one of the things that they love, and they're often very playful, they're often very silly, especially the youngsters, just like those young lion cubs that we've been sitting watching. So yes, I think that elephants do like the rain, personally. I'm sorry, I wasn't sure who that question was from, so I'm sorry I missed your name. Eva, the question came from Eva, so there you go. Eva, I think elephants like the rain. And it's nice because they're nice and cool, so they're not discomforted by the hot sun. It's just a situation where they can feel more comfortable. Oh, look at these cubs. What are they up to? What have they seen? These two are definitely the troublemakers of the group. Now, in this pride, there are 17 lions, and 13 of them are young. They're not even a year old. Oh, did you steal his stick? That's not very nice. Oh. Now, Caden, you've got an interesting question about these young cubs, and that is how they can tell who their mum is. Well, remember, right in the beginning of their lives, when they're born, the mum hides them away in a special secret place, and only she visits them. So they become familiar with her smell, they become familiar with what she looks like, what she sounds like, so they know their mum. They know their mum as easily as you know your own parents or your friends or your teachers from strangers. They know them very well. But the interesting thing about lions is that even if they do recognize and know their mum, their aunts are almost as good. So all females in a lion pride are related to each other. It's a big family. It's mothers, daughters, aunts, cousins, but they're all females and they're all related, which means when they have cubs, if they have cubs around the same time, then the cubs from one mother can suckle from another mother. It's the lovely thing about lions. There we go. We're starting to get a little bit of movement. The troublemakers are going and waking everybody up, trying to get them to get up. The lionesses don't really want to, but they might get lucky, stirring the rest of their pride. So there are 13 cubs. That's lots of playfulness. Addison, lions are not so aggressive, actually. they're actually really not aggressive animals. They are predators. They are obligate carnivores. In other words, that means they have to eat meat. And because this is the wild, they're not fed. They don't go down to the grocery store and buy meat, which means that they have to catch their own food. Otherwise, they're not aggressive at all. Look at them. They're just play fighting. They play fighting like a kitten would, or a puppy. I don't know if any of you have kittens or puppies, or maybe you've gone to see kittens and puppies and you see how they wrestle. But lions are not that aggressive, and in fact will even run away from people if people walk up to them most of the time. Okay, well, our lion disappears off with a stick in its mouth. Quickly off you go back to South Africa, because Steve would really like to show you a bird.
And welcome back. Now we've managed to locate a very special bird, and also very characteristic for the summer months. I believe you've been enjoying some elephants and discussing why they like water. When the rains come to southern Africa, we get these birds. This is called the woodlands kingfisher, and he's posing very nicely there, showing off his beautiful blue plumage and that very, very beautiful characteristic red beak on the top, and underneath it's black. You can hear him calling in the distance. I don't know if you can hear that very high chirr sound, but it is probably the first bird you hear in the mornings. He wakes us up normally about 4:30 in South African time, and they move all the way down here for breeding and for feeding. Now I wonder, those of you from the school group, if you'd be able to tell me what kind of food these birds actually are here feeding on. It's quite an interesting one. Sorry, can you go again with your question? Can you repeat your question, please? Sorry, I didn't quite copy. What part of South Africa, or what part of Africa are we located, Mrs. South Cross? We are in the Sabi Sands, which is in the Limpopo, Mpumalanga province of South Africa. It's on the eastern side in an area known as the Lowveld. It is a very dry area in the summer months, not dry in the summer months, dry in the winter months, but we are in what we call the savanna biome. And if anyone's familiar with what a biome is called, it is a broad geographical area, so a large area comprised of similar trees and vegetation. That is what it is basically characterized by. So I have a question for all of you out there. We are in the savanna biome, and can anybody tell me why we have such a high diversity of mammal species, especially those that chew cud, like cows, for example, the ruminants? Anybody tell me why we have a large proportion of species in the savanna that are ruminants? I think I'd like to hear some answers back from that, because it's a very interesting dynamic. Why do we have so many of those species in the savanna? Just on the floor there, you can see him walking. I said we've got a spur fowl just coming into picture. Spur fowl. Now, unlike the woodlands kingfisher, these birds are ground birds. They walk along the ground. Not the best picture there for you, but you can just see the top of their head, and I saw a white eyebrow stripe, also known as a supercilium, which is what I'd call the crested francolin. I can also hear them calling in the distance. They're walking around very similar to chickens would do, plucking and scratching and picking up seeds and insects and anything they might be able to find. What's quite interesting about those birds as well is they're looking for insects and grubs in dung, especially elephant dung. Elephants move around and feed on huge amounts of vegetation, once again in the savanna biome, and they will defecate that on the ground, big piles of dung, huge amounts of insects inside. The larvae inside, if you're familiar with larvae, eggs are laid inside the dung, and then they turn into little small bugs or caterpillar type, what we call chojos in South Africa, but larvae, and they feed inside the dung, and then they actually mature inside the dung and then hatch out as an adult. And so these birds are walking around trying to scratch out and to look for those very, very nutritious grubs in the dung. Amaya, interesting question. Do elephants suck the grass up from the ground with their trunks? No, they do not. The elephants actually use their trunk, which is actually a very long extension of the nose. They actually breathe through the trunk, and the trunk has no other function for feeding other than for grabbing the grass with the trunk, ripping it up, and then putting into the mouth, where they then chew it and then swallow it. The trunk is also used for drinking water, so they will suck up quite a huge amount of water, 7-8 liters I believe, which they then will shoot back into the mouth. So the trunk is actually a nose. If you could imagine trying to stick grass up your nose, I don't think it'd be very pleasant. Be quite ticklish, but not quite pleasant. Okay, so we're going to continue on, hopefully hear back about some of my questions there, and we're going to continue down the road, see if we can pick up on any animals hiding in the shade. Unfortunately, we had a really nice sighting of some dwarf mongoose before, but we lost signal, so we're not able to show that to you. So hopefully we can find some more. Okay, let's go. So this time of year, with the rains, very, very hot, as I said before. Animals like lions.
Okay, so we've lost somebody, but that's okay. We are still here. We apologize for that. It's just one of those realities of bringing you a live safari. So our lions are definitely showing signs of getting up. This lioness here is not very happy with the flies. They've been attacking her and biting her, and that's why she was snapping and scratching at her hindquarters. So that's one of the adult lionesses, and there are so many lions scattered here that it's difficult to even keep count. And what's interesting is that you can hardly see any of them. There's 17 lions over there. What you're looking at is 17 lions, but most of them are so fast asleep in little hollows in the ground that we actually can't even see them. Drake, no. Oh, they're really up and about. There we go. That's what we were waiting for. So, Drake, while we watch these lions play, a very good question from you, and I'm afraid to say that my answer is a sad one. Drake is wondering if the population of lions is on the rise, and the answer is that, in general, no. Throughout Africa, the lion population is decreasing, and that is because they are rapidly losing habitat. They are also being poached. So it is an animal like most, if I'm honest, most big African mammals that is not yet, in this case, on the verge of being endangered, but getting to be very, very close. So their numbers are decreasing. If it continues in the way that it has, we're going to be in for a sad future. Luckily, though, you can comfort yourselves that there are lots of people dedicated to protecting them. So, you've seen what a lioness looks like, and you've seen some young lions, but now, of course, I'm sure you want to see a male lion in all his glory, and luckily for you, Brent has found one.
Well, it is a very, very comfortable looking male lion. And remember, this is coming to you 100% live from the Masai Mara in Kenya. That is one of the dominant male lions that helped father all those cubs you've been seeing with Jamie. But he is having a snooze. He's not dead, don't worry. He's just very, very tired. He's got himself a really comfortable spot there. You can see that big furry mane around his neck. Now, of course, the lionesses, the females, don't have that. So that's because he has to fight for his territory with other male lions. That mane is there to help protect him from bites and other things. Tian wants to know, do lions flick their ears? They do, and they do it a lot, especially when there's lots of little biting flies around. Unfortunately, we can't see his ears. There's another lion moving there behind us, and it looks like there could be some cubs there as well. So on the other side, you see them there, Craig? There we go. It's the cubs. So it's the cubs from this pride. So male lions often have more than one pride. So there we go. There's some little cubbies. what are you guys looking at? So there's 3 lionesses and 4 cubs in this pride. So a much smaller pride than the pride Jamie's with. But we're right next door. We're not that far from where Jamie is. But this is the next pride along, called the Olololo pride. And they're the little 4 monsters. And in the background, you can see there's a big herd of buffalo. Who knows, maybe the females and the males might go hunt them a little bit later. Geordie is wondering, do cheetah and lions eat the same thing? Geordie, in a lot of cases, yes. But lions tend to be able to eat much bigger things than cheetah because they're much stronger. So cheetah don't really hunt buffalo, whereas lions like buffalo, especially male lions. Now, a little bit to the right of those lion cubs is something that we've been trying to avoid all afternoon. That is a wall of water heading in our direction. It's getting closer and closer. It's probably about 1.5 kilometers away. We might have to put down our rain covers a little bit later. But that is proper rain coming. And of course it is the rainy season, or the little rainy season. So we do get quite a lot of rain at this time of the year. Now, our cubs aren't doing too much. They seem to be staring at the buffalo, but it sounds like Jamie's are full of fun.
They are indeed full of fun, and it's probably true that in fact it's definitely true, that one of the cutest baby animals that you get out here is a lion cub. Now, these chaps might not be tiny, tiny babies, but they're still entertaining, I say, as they fall asleep again. No, there we are, we're up again. These two, it's still the 2 troublemakers. Now it's 3 troublemakers. And they are the cubs that are wide awake, desperately, desperately trying to get everybody else involved, but failing that, just dashing around and giving everybody else a headache. There you can see there's just paws rolling up and appearing out of the grass. So there's lots of lions about. And as it starts to get cooler, I know that Brent said he might have to put his rain covers on. We will as well, at some point, I think quite soon, although we're alright for now. But as it starts to rain, you'll find that the lions are going to get up and start moving. And that will be for a very, very different reason to the elephants. We've already spoken about how elephants like the rain. Lions do too, but it's because it makes hunting a little bit easier for them. You can hear the thunder off in the background, off in the distance. Now, some of these young lions are almost at the point where they're growing their manes, like teenage boys growing a beard. Stopping to scrape and relieve itself, just like a domestic cat would do. Now, Lydia, you want to know how a lion cub knows when a predator is coming. They don't always, necessarily, and that's one of the things about being a lion cub, is not all of them survive if another predator arrives, especially if their mothers aren't there. But their instincts are very, very strong. It's the same for a puppy or a kitten or anything like that. Those animals know when there's something dangerous. So even from very small, they will be aware if they can hear, because remember, they can hear quite well, they can smell quite well, not as well as the adults, but they're still learning. Now, if they can hear or smell something, they'll try and hide away, and their instinct tells them to hide as much as possible. So, in that sort of scenario, the older they are, the safer they are, because the more they've learnt and the more alert they are as well.